Crack. The sound of skin hitting skin exploded across the marble floors of Metropolitan Trust Bank. In the middle of a busy Tuesday morning, branch manager Devon Richardson had just slapped a black woman across the face, hard. "Maybe now you'll learn some respect," Devon shouted, his voice echoing through the stunned lobby. What would you do if your boss assaulted you in front of dozens of people? Have you ever been judged by how you dress or look? Well, this story will make your blood boil. Devon thought he was putting some difficult customer in her place. The woman stood there calmly, touching her stinging cheek. She was dressed simply, jeans, a plain sweater, carrying an old messenger bag. To Devon, she looked like trouble, someone who didn't belong in his respectable bank. But here's what Devon didn't know: what would destroy his entire career in the next 10 minutes. The woman he just slapped? She wasn't some random customer. She was Kira Washington, the chief executive officer of Metropolitan Trust Corporation, his ultimate boss, the woman who signed his paychecks. If you've ever felt invisible or judged, smash that like button, because what happens next will shock you. This wasn't just assault. This was career suicide caught on camera. Let me take you back to how this all started. It was 9:47 a.m. on a busy Tuesday morning in Chicago's financial district. The Metropolitan Trust Bank branch was packed with customers, phones ringing, people rushing to make deposits before work. Kira Washington, 38 years old, had just walked through those glass doors. She looked ordinary, no fancy suit, no designer heels, no flashy jewelry. Just a regular woman trying to do some banking. What nobody knew was that Kira had built Metropolitan Trust from a small community bank into a $50 billion empire over the past 12 years. She was worth more money than everyone in that building combined. So why was she dressed like this? Kira made these undercover visits twice a month to different branches across the country. She wanted to see how her employees treated real customers when they thought nobody important was watching. She'd learn more about her company in these disguised visits than in any boardroom meeting. Meanwhile, Devon Richardson was having what he called a perfect day managing Branch 204. At 45 years old, Devon had run this location for 8 years. He prided himself on keeping his branch professional and maintaining standards. To Devon, maintaining standards meant making sure certain types of people knew their place. He had his system. Well-dressed white customers got immediate attention and private offices. Everyone else waited in long lines or got directed to the ATM machines. Devon's employees knew the rules. Treat the right kind of customers like royalty. Everyone else, make them prove they belong there. But here's what Devon didn't know. The woman he was about to assault wasn't just any customer. She was the person who could fire him with a single phone call. The woman who owned every brick in that building, every computer, every desk he sat behind. Kira had chosen this branch specifically because of multiple complaints about discriminatory treatment. She'd received letters from customers, online reviews mentioning Devon by name, and even complaints from her own employees about his behavior. Today, she was finally going to see it for herself. Kira walked up to the customer service desk where a young woman with bright pink nails was scrolling through her phone. "Excuse me, I'd like to open a business account," Kira said politely. Amber Collins, 24, barely glanced up. "You need to wait in that line over there," she said, pointing lazily toward a crowded area near the ATM machines. Kira looked around the lobby. She watched a white man in an expensive suit walk straight past the line Amber had pointed to. A blonde receptionist immediately escorted him to a private office. 30 seconds later, a well-dressed white woman got the same VIP treatment. But when an elderly black man approached the desk, Amber pointed him to the same long line she'd shown Kira. This was exactly what Kira had suspected. She pulled out a small notebook and started writing down what she observed. The time, the different treatment, the employees involved. As CEO, she'd learned to document everything. That's when Devon Richardson emerged from his corner office. Devon's eyes swept across the lobby like a security guard looking for trouble. His gaze stopped on Kira, sitting quietly in the waiting area with her notebook. He didn't like what he saw. "Excuse me, ma'am," Devon said, walking over with authority in his voice. "You can't be taking notes in here. This is a financial institution with security protocols." "I'm just waiting to speak with someone about opening an account," Kira replied calmly. Devon's eyes narrowed. "What type of account?" "Because we're not like those check-cashing places down the street. We have minimum balance requirements here." The insult was clear. Devon was assuming Kira couldn't afford to bank at a real institution. "I understand," Kira said. "I'd like to discuss a substantial business account." Devon actually laughed. "Right? And what kind of business would that be?" He looked at her clothes, her simple appearance, and made his judgment. In Devon's mind, people who looked like Kira belonged at payday loan shops, not in his prestigious branch. "Ma'am, maybe you should try the community credit union across town. They might be more suitable for your needs. Drop a comment if you've experienced this kind of treatment, because what Devon was doing happens more than you think." Kira stayed calm, but inside, she was taking mental notes. As CEO, she was seeing her company's discrimination problem firsthand. Devon's face was getting redder by the minute. This woman wasn't backing down, and it was making him furious. "Listen here," Devon said, stepping closer to Kira. "I've been managing this branch for 8 years. I know trouble when I see it. I simply asked to open an account," Kira replied quietly. "Don't play games with me." Devon's voice was rising now. Other customers were starting to stare. "People like you always think you can walk in here and demand special treatment." There it was. People like you. Jordan Martinez, a 22-year-old college student working part-time as a teller, heard those words and felt their stomach drop. They'd seen Devon's behavior before, but never this bad. Quietly, Jordan pulled out their phone and started recording. "Sir, I'm not asking for special treatment," Kira said. "I just want to speak with another manager." "I am the manager," Devon exploded. "And there's no other manager for people like you." The entire lobby was watching now. An elderly white woman named Victoria Hayes, who'd been banking there for 20 years, couldn't believe what she was seeing. Devon got right in Kira's face. "Maybe you didn't hear me the first time." Kira didn't move. She just looked at him calmly. That's when Devon lost it completely. Smack. His hand flew across Kira's face so hard the sound echoed off the marble walls like a gunshot. Every conversation in the lobby stopped instantly. "Now maybe you'll understand that this is a respectable bank for respectable people," Devon shouted. "You can take your welfare applications somewhere else." The silence was deafening. 30 people stood frozen, watching this black woman touch her red cheek, while a white manager stood over her, breathing hard. Victoria Hayes gasped out loud. "How dare you?" she yelled at Devon. "That's assault." Jordan's hands were shaking as they kept recording, knowing they were capturing something huge. Other customers started pulling out their phones. Some looked shocked, others uncomfortable, but nobody stepped in to help. Devon wasn't done. "This is what happens when people don't know their place," he continued. "I don't care if you call the police, call whoever you want. Nobody talks to me that way in MY branch." But this was just the beginning. What Devon didn't realize was that he'd just committed career suicide on camera. The woman he'd just assaulted wasn't some random customer he could bully and forget about. She was his boss. His boss's boss. The person who owned the entire company. And in about 5 minutes, his whole world was about to crumble. Jordan Martinez's hands were still shaking as they stopped recording. They had just captured something explosive, a bank manager physically assaulting a customer while making racist comments. Within seconds, Jordan was uploading the video everywhere. First, TikTok, bank manager assaults customer. This is absolutely disgusting. Hashtag Metropolitan Trust Shame. Hashtag banking while black. Then Instagram. I can't believe what I just witnessed at work today. Finally, Twitter. This happened at Metropolitan Trust Bank in Chicago. How is this manager still employed? Hashtag Metropolitan Trust shame. Hashtag justice for customers. The response was immediate and explosive. Within 5 minutes, the video had 500 shares on Twitter. People were retweeting with their own comments. At Justice Warrior 2024. This is 2024 and we're still dealing with this garbage? Hashtag Metropolitan Trust shame. At Civil Rights Now. The racism is so obvious it hurts to watch. That manager needs to be fired today. At Banking Reform. How many other customers has this man treated like this? Hashtag Metropolitan Trust shame. At Chicago Activist. I'm never banking here again. This is sick. The hashtag Metropolitan Trust shame started trending in Chicago within 15 minutes. Then Illinois. Then nationwide. TikTok was even worse for the bank. The video exploded to 50,000 views in 10 minutes. Comments were pouring in. This manager belongs in jail, not behind a desk. Poor woman just wanted to open an account. The way he hit her made me sick. Every employee just watched and did nothing. By 11 a.m., just 1 hour after the incident, the video had reached 2.5 million views across all platforms combined. Meanwhile, at Metropolitan Trust's corporate headquarters in downtown Chicago, Maya Patel, the chief communications officer, was having the worst morning of her career. Her assistant burst into her office. Maya, we have a situation. Check Twitter right now. Maya's face went pale as she watched Devon Richardson slap a customer. Her phone started ringing immediately. Reporters, board members, activists, lawyers. Get me the crisis management team now. Maya shouted. Cancel all my meetings. This is a full emergency. The company's stock price was already starting to drop. News outlets were picking up the story. Hashtag Metropolitan Trust shame was trending in 3 different countries. Meanwhile, Kira's phone kept buzzing nonstop. Missed calls from Robert Chun, the board chairman. Text messages from other executives. Notifications from her Google alerts showing her company's name all over social media, and not in a good way. But Kira wasn't answering. She was still standing in that lobby, watching Devon Richardson destroy his career in real time while dozens of people recorded every word. Share this video if you believe in accountability, because what happened next proves that sometimes the internet can deliver justice faster than any court system. The video was now approaching 5 million views. Local news trucks were pulling up outside the bank, and Devon Richardson still had no idea that the woman he'd just assaulted could fire him with a single word. While Devon was still ranting about respect and standards, Antonio Rivera, the head of security, was studying the situation carefully. Antonio had worked corporate security for 15 years. He'd learned to notice details other people missed. And right now, he was noticing things about this troublemaker that didn't add up. First, her watch. Antonio had an eye for expensive timepieces, and the woman was wearing a Patek Philippe Nautilus. Not some knockoff, but the real deal. Those watches cost more than most people's cars. Antonio owned a modest collection himself, and he knew authenticity when he saw it. Second, her bag. What Devon saw as an old messenger bag was actually a custom Hermes piece. The leather was perfectly aged, the stitching was flawless, and the hardware had that distinct weight that only comes with genuine luxury goods. Third, her composure. Most people who get slapped in public either break down crying or fight back. This woman just stood there with the calm confidence of someone who'd handled worse situations before. Antonio's phone buzzed with a text from corporate security. Check social media. Your branch is trending. Meanwhile, Kira's phone wouldn't stop ringing. The caller ID kept showing the same name, Robert Chun, board chairman. She declined the call again. Robert was probably seeing the videos online and panicking. As board chairman, he knew exactly what this kind of public relations nightmare could do to the company. But he had no idea his CEO was standing right there in the middle of it. Devon noticed her expensive phone lighting up constantly. "Let me guess," he said mockingly. "Your drug dealer trying to call you back? That's probably a stolen phone anyway." Antonio couldn't believe what he was hearing. This manager was looking at obvious signs of wealth and somehow convincing himself they were evidence of criminal activity. The woman's phone rang again. This time, Devon saw the name on the screen, Robert Chun, board chairman. "Oh, now you're going to pretend you know our board chairman?" Devon laughed cruelly. "What's next? You going to tell me you're the CEO?" That's when Carmen Rodriguez, the assistant manager, came out of the back office to see what the commotion was about. She took one look at the woman Devon had slapped and went completely pale. Carmen had attended the company's annual leadership conference last month. She'd sat in the front row when Kira Washington gave her keynote speech about the future of banking. Carmen had even taken a selfie with her afterward. The woman standing in their lobby, with the red handprint on her cheek, was definitely Kira Washington, their chief executive officer. Carmen's hands started shaking as she realized what had just happened. Devon had assaulted the CEO of their entire corporation. On camera, in front of dozens of witnesses. She tried to catch Devon's attention, but he was still going off about people knowing their place and maintaining standards. Devon had no idea he was digging his own grave deeper with every word. The viral videos had now reached 8 million views. News crews were setting up outside. Corporate executives were in emergency meetings. And career destruction was happening in real time. But the biggest shock was still coming. At Metropolitan Trust's corporate headquarters, the executive boardroom was in complete chaos. Maya Patel burst through the heavy oak doors where the board of directors was having their weekly meeting. Her face was white with panic, her phone clutched in her trembling hand. "We have a crisis," Maya announced, her voice cracking. "A massive crisis." Board Chairman Robert Chin looked up from his quarterly reports. "Maya, we're in the middle of..." "Sir, you need to see this right now," Maya interrupted, holding up her phone. "One of our branch managers just physically assaulted a customer. It's everywhere online." The room fell silent. Robert took Maya's phone and hit play on the video that now had 12 million views and counting. The board members watched in horror as Devon Richardson's hand connected with a black woman's face. They heard his racist comments. They saw the customer standing there calmly, touching her cheek. Board member Janet Williams gasped. "That's terrible, but why are you?" Then Robert Chen's face went completely white. He rewound the video and looked closer at the victim. "Oh my God," he whispered. "That's Kira." The boardroom exploded. "What do you mean that's Kira?" asked board member Michael Foster. "That's our CEO," Robert shouted, jumping to his feet. "That manager just assaulted Kira Washington on camera." Panic spread across the room like wildfire. The woman they'd just watched get slapped wasn't some random customer. She was the chief executive officer of their entire corporation. "Get me Lisa Thompson on the phone now," Robert commanded. Within minutes, Lisa Thompson, director of corporate security, was racing toward Branch 204 with a full investigation team. She had emergency authority to lock down any location and terminate any employee on the spot. Her phone was buzzing with updates. The video now had 15 million views. Hashtag Metropolitan Trust Shame was trending worldwide. News crews were gathering outside the branch. The company's stock was dropping fast. Back at the branch, Devon was still making things worse for himself. "I don't care who's recording," he shouted at the crowd. "This is MY Branch, and I decide who belongs here." Carmen Rodriguez was desperately trying to get his attention. "Devon, please, we need to talk privately." "Not now, Carmen. Can't you see I'm handling this situation?" Antonio Rivera was getting increasingly uncomfortable. His security training told him this was going very wrong, very fast. "Sir," Antonio said carefully, "maybe we should call corporate security." "I don't need corporate security," Devon snapped. "I can handle one troublemaker." The troublemaker was still standing there quietly, checking her phone. More missed calls from Robertson, text messages from other executives, notifications showing her company's name trending on every social platform. Jordan Martinez was still recording, along with a dozen other customers. The live streams were showing thousands of viewers watching this disaster unfold in real time. Local news vans were pulling up outside. Reporters were setting up cameras. The Chicago police had been called about a possible assault. What happened next changed everything. Devon's phone rang. The caller ID showed corporate security, emergency. He declined the call. His phone rang again immediately. Same caller. He declined it again. "Sir, you really need to take that call," Antonio said urgently. "I'm busy," Devon shouted. "Hit subscribe if you want to see justice served." Because in the next few minutes, Devon Richardson was about to discover that his victim wasn't just any customer. She was the one person who could destroy his entire career with a single phone call. And she was about to make it. Kira Washington had heard enough. She reached into her messenger bag and pulled out a platinum access card that gleamed under the lobby's bright lights. The card had her photo, her name, and her title clearly visible. Kira Washington, Chief Executive Officer, Metropolitan Trust Corporation. She held it up for everyone to see. "Devon Richardson," she said calmly, her voice cutting through all the noise. Employee ID 4471. Hired January 15th, 2016. Current salary $78,000 per year. Devon's face went through a transformation that everyone in the lobby would remember forever. First confusion, then disbelief, then pure, absolute terror. That's not possible," he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. "You just slapped the chief executive officer of this company," Kira continued, her tone steady and professional. "In front of 30 witnesses. On camera. While making racist comments." Devon's knees actually buckled. He grabbed onto a nearby desk to keep from falling over. "Ms. Washington, I didn't. You weren't supposed to." "Weren't supposed to what, Devon? Look like a CEO? Dress like a CEO? Be black and be in charge of this company?" The lobby was dead silent except for the sound of phones recording and Devon's heavy breathing. Carmen Rodriguez finally found her voice. "Sir, I tried to tell you. I recognized her from the leadership conference." Devon spun around. "Why didn't you say something?" "I tried. You wouldn't listen." That's when Lisa Thompson burst through the front doors with her corporate security team. She moved like a woman on a mission, her badge clearly visible, her team carrying official documentation equipment. "Ms. Washington," Lisa said professionally, "I'm here to handle this situation immediately." She turned to Devon, who was now visibly sweating. "Mr. Richardson, you are under investigation for physical assault of a company executive, discriminatory conduct, and violation of corporate ethics policies." Lisa's team immediately began documenting everything. Photos of Kira's red cheek, video statements from witnesses, security camera footage, social media evidence from the viral videos. "This is all being recorded for legal purposes," Lisa announced to the crowd. "Anyone who witnessed the incident, please provide your contact information to my team." Devon tried one last desperate attempt to save himself. "Ms. Washington, please, I made a mistake. I didn't know who you were. If you just identified yourself. So you only treat people with respect if they're important enough?" Kira cut him off. "You think it's okay to assault customers as long as they're not your boss?" "No, that's not what I meant. Devon, in the 8 years you've managed this branch, how many customers have you treated exactly like you treated me today?" Devon couldn't answer. He knew the truth, and so did everyone watching. Lisa Thompson opened her official folder. "Devon Richardson, by the authority granted to me by Metropolitan Trust Corporation, you are terminated immediately for cause. Physical assault of a customer, discriminatory conduct, and gross misconduct." "Please," Devon begged. "I have a family, a mortgage. I've worked here for 8 years. You should have thought about that before you decided to assault our CEO, Lisa replied coldly. Security will escort you from the premises. You have 5 minutes to collect personal items from your office. Your corporate access is revoked immediately. The crowd watched in stunned silence as 2 security officers flanked Devon. His ID badge was taken, his keys confiscated, his computer access terminated in real time. What about severance? Devon asked desperately. Terminated for cause, Lisa said. No severance, no benefits, no recommendation letter. And this incident will be reported to federal banking regulators. Devon's career in banking was over. Forever. But losing his job was just the beginning. The real consequences, the lawsuits, the criminal charges, the industry-wide changes this incident would trigger, those were still coming. And they would be far worse than Devon could ever imagine. 2 hours after Devon's termination, Kira called an emergency board meeting at Metropolitan Trust headquarters. The boardroom was packed. Every executive, every department head, every regional manager who could get there on short notice. The viral video was still spreading, now at 25 million views across all platforms. What happened today wasn't just one bad employee, Kira told the room. This video exposed a problem we've been ignoring for too long. She clicked to her first slide, customer complaints from the past 2 years. Hundreds of them. Stories of discrimination, dismissive treatment, and bias from branches across the country. We're not just dealing with Devon Richardson, Kira continued. We're dealing with a culture that allowed Devon Richardson to exist. Board Chairman Robert Chin leaned forward. What are you proposing? Complete transformation. Starting today, Kira announced the Metropolitan Trust Equality Initiative, the most comprehensive banking reform program ever attempted by a major financial institution. Phase 1, immediate changes. Every branch would install body cameras for security staff within 30 days. No more, she said, situations. Every customer interaction would be recorded and reviewable. All 2,847 employees would complete mandatory bias recognition training within 60 days. Not generic online modules, but real workshops led by civil rights organizations. Monthly bias audits would be conducted at every branch by independent third-party companies. Mystery shoppers from different backgrounds would test how customers were actually treated. Phase 2, long-term transformation. The hiring process would be completely overhauled. New requirements included diversity training for all hiring managers and structured interviews designed to eliminate unconscious bias. Customer service protocols would be rewritten from scratch. Every employee would learn the same greeting, the same respect, the same level of service, regardless of how a customer looked or dressed. Promotion criteria would include mandatory customer satisfaction scores that reflected treatment of all demographics, not just wealthy clients. Phase 3, accountability measures. Manager bonuses would now be tied directly to customer satisfaction scores across all racial and economic groups. Discriminate against customers? Lose money. A new position called Customer Dignity Officer would be created at every major branch. These officers would handle complaints, review interactions, and ensure fair treatment. Quarterly community meetings would be held where customers could provide direct feedback about their experiences. The Branch 204 transformation. Branch 204 became the pilot location for all these changes. The transformation was immediate and dramatic. Amber Collins, the dismissive receptionist, was terminated for poor customer service. Her replacement was Maria Santos, a bilingual customer service specialist who greeted every person with genuine warmth. The lobby was redesigned. Gone were the separate lines that created different treatment for different customers. Everyone used the same system, got the same respect, received the same level of service. New signs went up in multiple languages. Every customer deserves dignity and respect. Jordan Martinez's new role. The college student who recorded the incident got an unexpected phone call from Kira herself. "Jordan, would you be interested in a full-time position as our customer experience specialist?" Kira asked. Jordan was shocked. "You want to hire me? You saw injustice and took action. That's exactly the kind of employee we need." Jordan accepted immediately. Their first day on the job, they walked through the same lobby where they'd witnessed Devon's assault. But everything was different now. Customers were smiling. Employees were helpful to everyone. The atmosphere had completely changed from hostile to welcoming. 3 months later, the results. Customer satisfaction scores at branch 204 jumped from 2.1 stars to 4.7 stars. Complaint letters stopped coming. Instead, people were writing thank you notes. The branch went from losing customers to gaining them. People were driving from other neighborhoods specifically to bank there because word had spread about how well everyone was treated. Other Metropolitan Trust branches begged to be included in the reform program early because they saw the results. Industry impact. Other banks started watching. Some implemented similar programs voluntarily to avoid their own viral incidents. Federal regulators took notice. The Kira Washington Standard became the model for how banks should treat all customers fairly. Comment below, what other changes would you implement to ensure equality in banking? The transformation proved something powerful. When companies face their problems honestly and make real changes, everyone benefits. Customers, employees, and even the company's reputation and profits. But the story wasn't over. The real test would be whether these changes would last, or if this was just temporary damage control. The Devon Richardson incident didn't just change Metropolitan Trust. It changed the entire banking industry. Within weeks of the video going viral, federal banking regulators launched investigations into discriminatory practices at major financial institutions across the country. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency announced new guidelines requiring all banks to document and report customer treatment by demographic data. Senator Elizabeth Warren called for congressional hearings. If this can happen at a major bank with cameras rolling, what's happening when nobody's watching? She asked during a press conference. The Federal Reserve created new examination procedures specifically designed to identify discriminatory branch practices. Banks that failed these tests would face massive fines and regulatory action. The Kira Washington Standard. Within 6 months, the phrase Kira Washington Standard became industry shorthand for truly inclusive banking practices. J.P. Morgan Chase implemented body cameras at all branches nationwide. Wells Fargo hired 500 new diversity and inclusion officers. Bank of America created a $10 billion fund specifically for underserved communities. Banking trade publications ran headlines like, "Meeting the Washington Standard" and "Post-Washington Banking, a New Era." None of these banks wanted to be the next viral video. They all wanted to be proactive instead of reactive. Harvard Business School Case Study. The incident became required reading at Harvard Business School, Wharton, and Stanford. Business students studied the video, analyzed Metropolitan Trust's response, and learned how one employee's actions could destroy decades of corporate reputation building. Professor Janet Wilson at Harvard wrote, "The Richardson-Washington incident demonstrates how quickly authentic leadership can transform crisis into opportunity for positive change." Students practiced crisis management scenarios based on the case. They learned that real leadership means taking responsibility and making genuine changes, not just issuing apology statements. Jordan's transformation. Jordan Martinez went from part-time college student to corporate customer experience manager within 18 months. They now travel to branches nationwide, training employees and ensuring the reforms are working. "That day changed my entire life," Jordan reflects. "I learned that standing up for what's right, even when it's scary, can lead to opportunities you never imagined." Jordan's phone still has the original video, now with 47 million views across all platforms. They sometimes watch it to remind themselves how much has changed. I see customers today getting treated with respect and dignity regardless of how they look or dress. That makes everything worth it. Kira's leadership wisdom. 2 years later, Kira Washington became the most requested speaker at business conferences worldwide. Her message was simple but powerful. Leadership isn't about boardroom decisions. It's about ensuring every person who interacts with your organization feels valued and respected. She often tells audiences, "I learned more about my company in 10 minutes of being treated like an ordinary customer than in 10 years of executive meetings." Kira's book, Leadership from the Lobby, became a New York Times bestseller. Chapter 3, titled The Day I Got Slapped by My Own Employee, is the most quoted chapter in business schools. Present-day success. Today, Branch 204 is Metropolitan Trust's highest-rated location. Customers drive from across Chicago to bank there because of its reputation for excellent service. The branch employs people from 12 different countries who speak 15 different languages. Customer satisfaction surveys consistently show perfect scores across all demographic groups. Maria Santos, who replaced Amber Collins, was promoted to assistant manager. She still greets every customer personally and remembers their names. But the real lesson goes deeper than just banking reform or corporate policy changes. The universal message. This story proves that discrimination happens everywhere, in banks, restaurants, stores, schools, workplaces. But it also proves that change is possible when people are willing to stand up for what's right. Every Jordan Martinez who records injustice, every Victoria Hayes who speaks out against wrong behavior, every person who refuses to stay silent when they witness discrimination, they all contribute to making the world more fair. The truth is simple. Every human being deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their race, appearance, or economic status. That's not just good business, it's basic humanity. So let me ask you something. What would you have done if you were in that lobby, watching Devon Richardson slap Kira Washington across the face? Would you have pulled out your phone like Jordan Martinez? Would you have spoken up like Victoria Hayes? Or would you have just walked away and pretended it wasn't your problem? Be honest with yourself. Because here's the truth. Discrimination like this happens every single day. In banks, restaurants, stores, schools, workplaces. Right now, somewhere in America, someone is being treated exactly like Kira was treated simply because of how they look. The only difference is that most of the time, there's no Jordan Martinez recording, no viral video, no justice, just silence. That's why stories like this matter. That's why channels like Echoes of Grace exist. We shine a light on the experiences that too many people want to ignore or forget. But I need your help to keep telling these stories. If this story moved you, if it made you angry, if it gave you hope for change, but you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, what are you waiting for? Seriously, what's stopping you? This story reached 47 million people because individuals decided to share it. Your share, your comment, your subscription, they matter more than you think. Drop a comment below and tell me. Have you ever witnessed discrimination like this? Have you experienced it yourself? What would you want to happen next? This community is built on people who believe that everyone deserves dignity and respect. People who understand that staying silent in the face of injustice makes us part of the problem. And speaking of powerful stories, next week I'm sharing the incredible story of a teacher who discovered her student was living in his car with his little sister. What this teacher did next will restore your faith in humanity and show you how one person's kindness can change everything. But here's what I need from you right now. Hit that like button if this story affected you. Share it with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe if you believe these voices deserve to be heard. Because every time you engage with these videos, you're telling the YouTube algorithm that stories about justice and equality matter. You're helping ensure that the next Devon Richardson thinks twice before mistreating another customer. You're making sure that the next Kira Washington doesn't have to stand alone. Discrimination can happen to anyone, at any time, in any place. But change happens when good people decide they won't stay silent anymore. Don't let these stories go unheard. Subscribe now, and let's keep fighting for a world where everyone gets treated with the respect they deserve. I'll see you in the next video.